Hello and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. Have you heard of Kingdom Swim? Imagine a blissful summer day in late July in the far reaches of the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. The weekend kicks off with a swimmer and pet parade down Main Street and a pasta feed. There's a 1-mile swim. When you're ready, you can go a little further out into the lake for 3 miles, or check off your first marathon with a 6-mile swim. Jump up to 10 miles of open lake, or bust the Canadian border to get 25 kilometers under your belt. This is what Phil calls the ladder. It's where me and several others have started their marathon swim journey, culminating with a search for a lake monster as a swimmer scouting the length of Lake Memphremagog from Memphre. Or perhaps the culmination is swimming across and back. There have been a few doubles. In our interview today, my former neighbor on Sunset Acres, Phil White, tells how he got started by trying to save the local pool, and in the process, fell in love with open water swimmers. Enjoy. Hello. I usually open up with what's your story? But I know you have a lot of stories, Phil. So we're going to start with what got you into this marathon swimming business after all?
Okay. I've been a water rat all my life. I'm a vertical swimmer, not a horizontal swimmer. Because my sisters taught me a scissors kick, which I converted to a frog kick, and so I couldn't swim distances. But I loved the water. I'd hang out in it all the time. And I first swam at any length in Greece in 1969. I got a snorkel and goggles and flippers, and I was looking for great fish. And the fish in the Aegean are tasty, but they're not coral reef fish. They're just brown fish. There's nothing really exciting about them. So I ditched the goggles and the snorkel, and I would swim 3, 4, 5 miles a day along the coast on Mykonos, an island in Greece. And so I got, I loved the meditative aspect of swimming. It wasn't hard swimming. I was using flippers, and with the Aegean, you could roll over and take a nap if you wanted. It was so buoyant. But the true story is that I started trying to help IROC, our local indoor pool and rec center. And when I came in on board, they were $3 million in debt and losing $150,000 a year their first 3 years. And I said, well, let's strategize this. And they said, well, it's dead in the summer. We got to figure out how to get people in here in the summer. It took me 10 seconds to say, summers in Vermont are miracles. And we got to be an indoor and outdoor recreation center. So we started a bike event. We started a triathlon the next year. And then the year after that, 2009, I said, we have to do a running and a swimming event. So we organized the Dandelion Run. And as for Kingdom Swim, people said, well, you'll be lucky if you get 10 people out to swim, a 10-mile swim. We had 1 mile, 3 mile, and 10 mile that first year.
That was in 2009, right?
2009. And Greg O'Connor was the first person to sign up.
That's awesome.
The absolute first person to sign up. And then Alicia Markey signed up from Pennsylvania or Delaware, and she helped with the logo and the motto, no lanes, no lines, no limits. And then I stumbled across this guy, Ned Dennison and Leslie Thomas out in San Francisco, and they couldn't swim, but they said they would help. So they helped me on that first year and were enormous help. I think they knew that I was determined to do this swim, but if I did it alone, I would kill a bunch of swimmers. So they better step in and help me out. And that's been the story of any success I've had, is that I surround myself by competent people and they save me from myself. So the first year we had 100 people. And, there were some really exciting moments in that first year. I remember there was an IROC youth swim team, and
Yep.
Peter Stewart brought them out for their first open water swim. And it was at Prouty Beach, and I was in my boat. I had a really nice speedboat. And
She recently
uh,
retired, didn't she?
yeah, on the rocks with at the end of Sarah Thomas's 50-mile swim. But um, the so we're there, and they're swimming up to the ropes, and it's light rain, and they got beyond the ropes, and they start saying, "I can't see bottom. I can't see where I'm going." And they were all even though they were good swimmers, they were all dog paddling. And Peter just said, it's just like any other water, just swim to Phil's boat. I think he called me Mr. White, which is now a great name to have. And anyway, and all of a sudden, first one started to, really swim, and then I see another set of shoulders or elbows come up, and the slap of their swimming, and then all of them were swimming to the boat, and it was so exciting to see that happen. um, and it took off from there.
Yeah, it was, I used to help out with the IROC swim team, and that was taking those kids out in the water was how I got over my open water fears. Was just like, I can't impart more fear on these children. I can't impart my fear on them. But it's something else, seeing kids try something they've never done before. So thank
Did
you for
you
giving that
did you
opportunity.
did you do the 1 mile swim that first
That
year?
first year, 2009, that was my first open water swim. I had dabbled in triathlon a little bit after that, mostly just having anxiety attack through the swim, and the 1 mile there in Vermont. That's how I got started. But it was seeing Rondi that first year, seeing
And
her finish. It was I like how you time it so the 10-mile finishes, or some people are coming in before the 1 mile even leaves, so you're standing there on the beach. Because Vera said the same thing for her. Like, her start was being at the 1 mile, but seeing those 10-mile finishers come in, you're like, wait a second, there's people do 10 miles here. It gives you this whole new perspective.
well, watching her swim that first year, she's so long in the water and so graceful and so fast. And I was out, she was on the northern leg of the 10-mile swim when I watched her swimming. And I just, there's nothing more beautiful than that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So you get going. What was it like trying to start an event like Kingdom Swim in 2009 in a sleepy little place like the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont?
Well, there were a couple stories to that. The first was that we had the La Traversée, the 25-mile swim that went for professional swim that went from Newport to Magog. And we'd had a whole celebration around it, Aquafest. And even though they'd come at night and they'd leave, 5 o'clock in the morning, it stopped crossing the lake in 2003, 2004. And so Aquafest dwindled. And when I decided I was going to do it, I got a lot of resistance at first. There were some people trying to brand Newport as a high Filoy, place. What do you call it? And anyway, and I had resistance. Does this fit the brand of Newport? And I'm saying, who are you, the brand Nazis? I mean, we just want to swim. So I just decided we were going to do it on such and such a day. And then I got all sorts of blowback. How can you do this? I said, well, I've been trying to work with you guys for about 4 months, and it's September, and long distance swimmers are going to be signing in, signing up for next year, and they got to know that this exists. And so we got going, and then I needed these things called buoys, and they cost about $2,000. So I went to the local merchants. Well, I went to Dina at the east side and Tony Pomerleau, and they were in the middle of a property line dispute. And so they weren't really talking to each other. So I got Dina to donate $1,000 worth of buoys and Tony to donate $1,000 of buoys. And then I announced that Tina and Tony had come together to offer up these buoys, and Ned taught me that, we needed kayakers for every swimmer, and how to set that up. And he actually pinned the first courses with me on Google. I didn't know how to do Google. I still don't know how to do Google. But and with the pins, I mean, sometimes I figure it out and then I forget, and then I have to figure it out all over again. So there was all this going on, and then we started planning an aquafest around it, and so we had a pet and swimmers parade, which was a lot of fun, and we were raising money for the Frontier Animal Society at the time. They do adoptions and stuff like that. And so we had this gawky parade down Main Street at Friday afternoon with swimmers, kayakers, and a bunch of dogs. And there were a few goats, I think, in there. But it was a lot of fun. George Hunahan was one of the first year participants, and he was walking down. I said, bring your flags. I wanted to show Newport where everybody was from. Bring your flags. So he had his Connecticut flag, and he said, this is the first time I've ever been in a parade. And I've always wanted to be in a parade. And I figured that, swimmers just don't get parades. And they spend a lot of time alone, and they don't get, they weren't getting as much camaraderie as they're getting now.
Yeah.
And we had a great swimmers and yakers pasta dinner that night before, and the night before the morning of the swim, there was this huge thunderstorm that came rolling through town, and I was just about to print my deployment schedule for all the boaters that I'd blackmailed into helping support the swim, because that was the other thing. It was rounding up the boats to support the swim, and they were all coming in at the last minute. So I waited to the last minute to deploy them to different buoys and where they would be and stuff like that. And I was just getting ready to punch it at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the lights went out. And I waited a bit for them to come back on, and they didn't. And so then I said, well, I better go to the east side. Maybe I can punch it out on their computer. Well, I went into town, and the whole place was shut down. There was no lights in Newport or Derby, and the wind was blowing, and it was raining, and it was nasty, and then the thunder and lightning stopped, and the wind stopped, but it was still a torrential downpour. And so we were standing under that pavilion, getting ready to go, and the swimmers weren't that nervous, but the kayakers were really nervous, because it was a monsoon level kind of downfall.
And these were kayakers that you'd pulled off the street, just to be clear.
Well, yeah, for the locals, and some of the swimmers brought their own kayakers,
right.
But there were a lot of locals, and I'd go into bars and impress them to service like the British Navy used to do. Yes. And then half an hour before the swim, 15 minutes before we deployed the kayaks, the rain just stopped, and the water was as calm could be. And then we got through the swim, got through the award ceremony, and now we'd planned everything as well as we could, up to that point. It was a first time event. And I looked around to everybody and I said, we got to get these buoys off the lake. And everybody was, all my team were just vanishing before my eyes. I said, we were here for you until 5 o'clock, Phil, but we're done. We've been working days and days. And we're done. And I look out there, and now this first year, all those buoys were tied to some cinder blocks. And I was all alone. And I said, when you're all alone and you're facing a daunting task like that, the first thing you got to do is go get a drink. So I went over to the east side, and they just opened deck. And a friend of my son's was bartending, and he had been a bartender at the East Side. And I came up to the bar, the outdoor bar, and I said, told her what was happening, and I said, I really need a drink before I go off and do all this. And her father was there, Jimmy Campbell, and he said, Phil, have a drink on me. So thank you, Jimmy. Now, Jimmy is a really nice guy, but he's also very, very cheap, And so I went out and I tried to pull up the first concrete blocks, and I could get them about 3 feet off the surface of the lake, but that was it. So I tie a bunch to the front of the pontoon boat and I drag them into shallow water and I leave them there till the next day. I didn't want to just cut them because that could foul boat. I didn't want to leave them in the lake. So then I go back to the deck, and Jimmy was long gone, but Kara was still working there. And I said, Kara, is Jimmy's tab still open? She said, of course. So I had another drink, and then I go out and get a bunch of other cinder blocks, drag them in, and I did that all night. And then I had a lot of cleanup to do the rest of the week. So I was in and out of the East Side, and Kara was working all week. And I'd say, is Jimmy's tab still open? And she said, of course, for you, Phil, anything. So come Friday, I'm at the deck having another drink, and Jimmy's there, and I thank him for the drink. I thank him for the drinks. And he said, I was happy to buy you a drink last Friday. And I said, no, keeping the tab open all week, Jimmy, that was really nice of you. He said, you son of a bitch. And that was the first Kingdom swim.
That's how you go, I guess, garnering support and getting help to put together an event like that. And in future years, where I know I helped you put in some buoys, and maybe I think you were recruiting people, anybody who you could find in town.
Yeah, no, and it was fun when we get people together and being out on the lake. I mean, I can't spend a minute out on the lake and not have a good time. I don't care whether it's day or night, foul or fair, or I'm drunk or sober. I mean, it's just great to be out on this lake. It's just it's a magical lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you, I guess, as an organizer, how do you engender support from people to help you so you're not out there pulling buoys by yourself? Has it gotten better, or are you still out there pulling buoys by yourself?
No. Well, first off, we learned to put 15-pound anchors on the two anchors, 2 lines, so we could pull them up easily. And we came up with a strategy for, each boat that's guarding a buoy, when they leave the buoy, they pull up that buoy. It's, as we go along, we figure things out. By the time I'm dead, I'll know what I'm doing. and that's really how that has worked. But it's been wonderful to see swimmers come through the different on the ladder that we've created for growing your swim. I mean, if you were always a 1-mile swimmer, you'd be welcome. We have a 75-year-old judge from DC who comes in with his son and swims the 1-mile swim every year. And that's there. And Laura Maljewski comes in and swims a 3-mile swim every year. But we also have people like you who start with the 1-mile swim and grow to the 3, to the 5, to the 10, and get a taste of the border buster or whatever, and then become swimmer scouts. And there are a bunch of you. Paula Yankauskas started as a 3-mile wetsuiter. So did Charlotte Bryn. And of course the Revard girls, and there are tons of others that have basically gone along through this and grown up through this system. Ian Grimmer from Middlebury is another one, as I think of them, and Lauren Byron is another one. And so it's kind of like just watching people grow and blossom in front of you. And that's fun. That's
a gift. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's one of the things I like about coaching too, just pushing people, trying to push people on their way.
Well, I try not to push. I've discovered that you guys are trigger fingers. It's like leaving a playground in front of a kid that eventually they'll try everything. Like what's her name? Sarah Thomas.
What's her name? That girl?
She just double crossed Lake Tahoe, and she was coming to do a one-way here. And I said, have you ever thought of another double cross? And she said, well, I've been to the English Channel once. I don't think I want to go back there again. Of course, we know that was wrong. But I said, no, I wasn't thinking of the English Channel. And I didn't say Memphremagog or anything like that. I said, I wasn't thinking about the English Channel. And she said, oh, Philip, I just finished this 44-mile swim. I can't imagine that I'd be ready to double cross Memphremagog. And I said, well, I just wanted you to know that if you wanted to do it, we'll figure out a way to make it happen.
Nice.
And a couple of weeks later, she called back and said, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that was my boat Pinky's last ride, because at the end of it, the wind was horrendous against her going in the water. And it was tailwind coming back, but there were still 2-3 foot waves. And no sane person would be out there swimming it. And when she finished her swim, I was bringing the boat around to the river and crashed it on the rocks at Point Mary. Oh. And I couldn't get her off the rocks. And so that was Pinky's last ride, was with Sarah.
Oh man. I should have written down the question I had in the tip of my mind, but tell us about the swim that you're most proud of putting on. Is there one? Maybe there's not one.
I don't know. There are a bunch of great moments. Having a USMS national championship and 100 people at the south end of Lake Willoughby, ready to start, 100 swimmers and 100 kayakers. That was pretty. That last 2019 swim week was it was
a good one.
A robust, fruition of all of this. My proudest moments were also my most disastrous moments. That first In Search of Memphre swim was raucous. We didn't know what we were doing. We all had a dinner the night before we started. We had a dinner at 8 and then went swimming at midnight. We didn't have enough support boats. They kept vanishing on me. We
had what, 3 for how
yeah,
many
three
people?
3 for 9 solos and the relay team.
The relay, right.
Which you were on. So we had 10 swimmers in the water at any given time, and we were trying to do it with kayakers, rotating kayakers off of 3 boats. And when we started, the wind was light where we were at the Gateway Center, but when we came around Ference Point and looked up north, the wind was barreling down at like 20 miles an hour, building up the whole way. And then who was it? One of the swimmers, Dutton, Jen Dutton, her husband was getting hypothermic in the kayak. So they decided to head back to Newport. They'd been out about a mile. And I learned that. Now we would just say, get in the boat.
Right. Yeah. No going back.
But in the middle of the night with a raging, windstorm coming down the lake, they're headed back. And I've got, 9 swimmers in front of me that are all seemingly doing okay, and 1 swimmer in distress going the other way. And I had the calculus that if that's the swimmer in distress, I got to make sure they get in okay, because I know they're in distress. So I had to break away from the group. And by the time I got back, the swimmers had all gotten separated from their kayakers because the kayakers couldn't keep up with them during the feeds and stuff like that. They were all over the place. And now we had to, kind of round them up, figure out who was where. And Charlotte was separated from her kayaker, and Greg was separated from his kayak. I mean, everybody was separated. I almost ran over Greg. Don't tell him. And and I said at one point to Christian, my bodyguard, I said, Christian, shoot me now so I don't have to watch every swimmer die one at a time. It was really scary.
Yeah.
But and come morning, and we didn't have great radio contact. And come morning, I thought everybody was out of the water, but 4 people were still swimming, and that was Greg and Elaine and Charlotte and Liz Fry,
Mm-hmm.
and they all made it to the end, and everybody else followed them in the pontoon boats, which nearly went underwater a couple of
Yeah,
times.
I was on one that we just about sunk with probably 15 people on it and 6 kayaks. It was just nothing.
which we learned from, which now, when you're out, you're out. When you're when you're out of the water, you're onto the boat, and when you're onto the boat, we get you to shore. Like we have, we can get you to shore at Georgetown. We can get you to shore back at Newport if that's what it takes. But we can't carry that many people.
Right.
And now we do it. We have 3 boats. We have 2 regular pilots, me and another guy, Rob Anderson, up here, and we're fishing around for a third, and we have 7 different windows. So we have experienced pilots. Our windows are 3 days, so we pick the best day. We're not stuck with the one day with the wind barreling down the lake, because, as you know, the wind and the weather changes significantly from day to day.
Yep.
And so we're not guaranteed of getting a good day, but we're guaranteed of getting a better day than some of the ones we've had with large expeditions. I miss the expeditions, but this is a much better way to get a swim done. And it still can have a group element of, 1 or 2 other people swimming. And since we changed that, everybody who swam has completed.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
How do you get through those scary moments? How do you keep your cool and get through those scary moments on the lake when you're responsible for all of these people in the water?
I've been through a lot of scary moments in my life.
So experience, experience required.
Yeah. Well, it gets adventurous at times. But one of the things I know is that there's some swimmers who are, I'm a downhill skier, and I love to downhill ski. And there's some people who just like the groomed trails. And then there are other people who love the moguls, and they love the glades, and they're different kinds of skiers. And I applied that to swimming. And, there's some swimmers that love those challenges. They love those waves and those, and every swimmer has dark moments, I think. Some don't. I don't know that Vera has dark moments when she's swimming. I don't think Amanda Hunt has dark moments when she swims. She just loves the water. But most swimmers have their demons, and wrestling with the demons is part of the battle, and swimming in the rough is part of the fun for a lot of people. And so we go through the battle together, and I know, I say, if this is ever too much for you, get out of the water.
Yep.
I'm just going to support you as much as I can. And there have been there was one rocky moment with Ray Gandy. We were coming back. He was trying to do a double cross. He's from Rhode Island. And we'd gone up to Magog. We were coming back at night. He was whimpering, and he was in really trouble. We had 2 pontoon boats. He had his crew with a pontoon boat, and I was kind of the guide boat. Or maybe I was using, no, I was using Pinky as a guide boat, and my speedboat. And so at night I'd go ahead and blink, and they would come to me, and we go on and on. And we got to back across the border on summer afternoon. And the sky was getting kind of like it gets sometimes. And I was getting a little nervous. And we'd crossed the border. So we had 4 miles to go. And I heard a rumble. And I called into the dispatcher at Newport Police, and I said, I heard a rumble. Now that could be, 30 miles away, or it could be, nearby. Can you check it out and see where it is? He said, yeah, I'll check it out, Phil, and I'll get right back to you. But he called me right back, and he said, Phil, I hate to tell you this, right over you. And the minute he hung up, down came 3 bolts of lightning around our boats. Ray jumped out of his boat like, a cork out of a bottle. And there was no question, and and we couldn't see anything. The wind was swirling like 60 miles an hour around us, and it was hailing. And I'm sitting there, and then I realized that they're looking to me. We could see each other, but we wouldn't dare get on the telephone. And they're looking for me to get them out of here. And I didn't know where I didn't know east from west, west from east. So I guessed, and I got us closer to shore. And then we were hand pointing. And do you want to go into shore here? Or, he's just finishing 46 miles of swimming. Do you want to go into town, even though? So they said into town. So we start boating into town. And within a minute, it had all vanished. And it turned out that this was just like a spot thunderstorm that came from nowhere, went nowhere. It was just right over Ray Gandy's head.
Wow.
And I think that's the last long distance swim he's done.
Wow.
But those scary moments happen, and the adventure of the moment is all, is worth it as long as the swimmer wants to do it. If I'd seen a thunderstorm coming, I would have said, we got to be ready for this. And I have told people to get out of the water when they didn't want to get out of the water, because mostly because they're not they're not looking good, and so I reserve that right. But I have only done that a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely, I think, open the door so that people can, I guess, do their thing, which I think is something that I really appreciate about you. Like you were saying with Sarah Thomas, you just open the door to like, well, if you want to do a double over here. And it's such a gift. I remember the first Kingdom swim week that I did, and I guess it would have been 2017 when Rowan was like 8 months old. And it was like the day we did Masa Whippy. And I was like, Phil, I just, I don't think I'm going to make it. We've been swimming the last, 2-3 days, and my shoulders are so sore. And you were like, okay, we'll just get started. And well, if you need a ride the rest of the way, no problem. Versus like putting me 3 miles from the finish or whatever. But and I made it across the whole thing, because it's one of those things, opening that door for people so that they can see what they can do. It's a really important trait.
Yeah.
So thank you for opening the door for so many marathon swimmers.
It's been a joy.
What's it like to, now you're doing ice swims and cutting pools in the ice and bringing swimmers in around from the world? What's that growth been like for you and for the community?
Well, the first year was very scary, not scary scary in a lot of ways, but the ice was 3 feet thick, and Newport Rec Department was cutting it for me. That was really the last year that they were acted as partners, almost partners with Kingdom Games, and it was good, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I got some help from the U.S. Winter Swimming Association folks, and some helps from the International Winter Swimming Association. But, we kind of figured it out. And then they kind of wandered off, but now I knew what, how more about how to run it. And I paid people to come in and do it and cut the pool, and they've been terrific. And they take care of everything. And gradually we built up the numbers. And, in fact, I was looking at the number of Vermont cold water swimmers. And back then there were three of them. There was Charlotte, Paula, Yankauskis, and who's the other? There's one other. And now there are 15.
Mm-hmm.
So the second year, Greg O'Connor and a few others, Janet Philander Manning, and Rena DeMeo, and Jamie Monahan, they all agreed to kind of help decide what to do. And we decided to go forward, even though, we didn't know whether it would be financially feasible.
Mm-hmm.
And the second and third year, we were around 40 swimmers each year. But the fourth year, we were up to 75. And last year we were at 95. And this year we're seeing, and we started the vampire swim in order to acclimatize people to cold water.
That's right.
And now we're seeing groups of cold water swimmers all over the US. We get them signing up for this virtual winter swim, which is for this year even better than a real open winter swim, because they don't have to travel to Newport, and they're collecting in pods. And like we have 15 from Alaska.
Wow, that's
now
fantastic.
That are swimming, and 15 from Pennsylvania, and 12 to 15 from Maryland. We even have a group in, now we have a group of 2 in Arizona. Emily Howell, I don't know if you're Emily Howell, Emily Evans from Arizona. She was a swimmer scout. She tried it. And so what I'm seeing is, and we've got 3 or 4 from Louisville or Knoxville, Tennessee. And, what I'm seeing is that these pods are expanding. The L Street swimmers have, grown exponentially. The Canadians have grown exponentially. And Nadine has started this Canadian cold water swimmers and group, and they're all over Canada, not just Ottawa and Ontario and Quebec. And so back in 2015, we were kind of alone, and I started this Facebook. I knew we had to grow the sport if it was going to be successful. And so I started this Facebook photo album called We Are Not Alone. And anytime I caught somebody swimming, there were 3 in Lake Ontario that swam year round, Madu, and 2 others. And that was it. And now there are probably 50 out there. So the sport has grown. And again, it's great having an inspiration that you could come to this festival, and that got people off the ground on it. But once you had what I call scallywags out there at various different places, and bringing in buddies to run away with them to this sport of cold water swimming, and people. So now I think it's the sport is going to survive on its own. It doesn't need the festival to, we'll, as long as we can, we'll have the festival, but because that's just a party. And it's a great challenge, and people love that challenge. And there are a lot of people that they want to challenge themselves, but they want to do something they know in their mind is safe. They may be, and when they see other people doing it, they know it's safe, like, right. Oh yeah, that's my friend and buddy, they're doing this foolishness. And so I can do this foolishness. And, So, it's been fun to watch that explode.
Yeah.
Not to mention the open water swimming community. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
since 2009, that has just taken off. And, so good fun.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's awesome to see what you've done since I've left. I wish it had all been there when I was there, but it was neat being a part
Well,
of it in the beginning. And
you helped start it, Shannon.
yeah. So you mentioned what's that?
I'm just wondering who else is on this
Oh, who else
line
we've got?
still.
We've got
I see
Caroline.
Janine. I see Alyssa. And Lynn, you're still on this?
Lynn's here.
And who's
John's still here.
Cappert? Oh, and John's now he's
Oh,
now he's
Marlis is
spaced up.
a fellow Oregonian. She hasn't made it out there yet.
Oh,
Sticks to warm water. I think no, she doesn't stick to warm water, but she's a swim track guide. She gets to do fun stuff and travel around the world. Just a couple more questions, Phil, and then I'll see if anyone else has questions. You've mentioned a few times, I don't know what I'm doing, and you continue doing something. Any recommendations for how to help people move on ideas that they have because you've made some amazing things happen just by starting out with, well, I didn't know what I was doing, but I did this thing anyway.
well, I have offered my help to any race organizer that needs that help, but um, the story about Ned Dennison is a good one on that, because I was just trying to find him as a swimmer for the 10-mile swim when I thought 10 people were going to get there. And I did searching on it wasn't the New York Open Water Swim then, it was Morty Berger's, I don't know what it was, but he had a good database. And so I was going through the swim around Manhattan and looking for Vermonters. And I came across Ned Dennison's name and saw that he was from Vermont, living in Ireland. And I thought, well, he would be a good one to invite. But I didn't have an email. So I found an email for an Irish swimmer. This is at 5 o'clock in the morning while I had a day job and all that kind of stuff, and IROCing. And I wrote to that guy and said, I'm looking for Ned Dennison. Do you know how to get in touch with him? And he didn't respond. And then I was off on all my other stuff. And finally, one day he responded, said, sorry, I responded so late, but my mother just died, and, just getting back to the real world again. And I said, well, my mother died a few years ago. And we went back and forth talking about grieving for mothers, and, I mean, the love of a loving mother is something that, and the love of a loving father is something that you don't get. What is it? Sorry about that. Go away. Anyway, on unconditional love, the loss of unconditional love is amazing. And so we went back and forth for about a month. And then, I didn't dare ask him. But after a month, he said, oh, and by the way, Ned's email is this. So I contacted Ned, and he said, no, I can't really come swim because I'm planning a swim around Jersey Island in channel 34 miles. And I said, oh, excuse me. I'm happy to help. So he helped chart the first course. And, and he's done that for lots and lots of people. And so I think the way and in fact, that's what he got inducted into one of the Hall of Fames, was as a mentor and as a helper. And I introduced him and said, I figure I got him this award because you guys figured if he could help me, he could help anybody. And one of the things we tried to do is spread whatever knowledge. Like I have a Yakker's Rule piece about how to be a good kayaker. I'm sure that's been used by a bunch of
I've
people in
shared it
one,
with people, yeah.
yeah, one way or another. Now I'm working on cold water beginners. You
Nice.
know, what do you need to, look, I just decided to do that yesterday when I had two people from Arizona starting to get ready for the virtual winter swim. And I said, they need, when people are heading into this, they need some kind of guide.
Yeah.
So
For
I think
sure.
that's the way I've been able to help people.
Yeah, that's great. What what's one of the biggest learnings that you've had? Is there one?
Follow your nose. You know, if I hadn't followed my nose, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I mean, this was not my life plan. I'd be broke and organizing running and biking and swimming events. But it's been, a great 10 years, a great decade. I've
Mhm.
had more fun in the last decade. I've had more terrifying moments in the last decade too, but I've had more fun, made more friends. I mean, the endurance athletic group. I have friends of runners. I have friends of bikers, of skaters, but mostly of swimmers. And we've been through shit together, you know,
Mhm.
and it's because, you know, we've followed our noses.
Yeah.
And and that's how I get into my most trouble, like the winter swim, like, the great skate across from Newport to Magog. We had a really, 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 really cold winter, and the ice was really, 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 really thick. And I plowed the lake 2 times, and and I was careful about it. I was drilling holes and seeing but it was the guy who was helping me was driving his truck with his door open, ready to jump at any time. And I'm an adventure dog, and so I've learned to accept that. You know, that's one of the things I like about downhill skiing is the adrenaline and the excitement and the challenge. And this has all of that.
Mhm.
So,
That's a good
and
one.
I've learned that swimmers are remarkable. I've learned a lot from swimmers, which is the one stroke. Be prepared, train. You got to be disciplined. You got to be careful. You need to know yourself, but one stroke at a time, and patience in the mindset. Um, you can go great distances, and so that's gotten me through all sorts. I mean, I almost went bankrupt 10 years ago, and I dug myself, and a friend of mine said, how do you eat a shit sandwich one bite at a time? But I learned from swimmers, I just deal with this one stroke at a time. And now I'm out of debt, and I have um, an excellent credit rating. I don't have any money, but I'm not about to I'm not about to go under. I didn't dare declare bankruptcy when I started Kingdom Games because that's not the way to start a company. You know?
Right.
So I had to work it out slowly, and eventually my old creditors got tired. These were creditors that I earned trying to bail out IROC.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was a big
Yeah, that left me deep in the hole in divorce. But
Yeah.
it was but one stroke at a time, and I got through it. And so, now I'm living the dream
The virtual connections the world
for a
over.
day or
That's
two
for a
anyway.
day or two, right? Yeah. Thank you for everything you do for the community. I do want, if people have questions for Phil, I want to give a minute so we can ask questions. Does anyone want to come off mute?
Oh, I have a question, and I actually put it in there, and I know
Oh,
you wrote a guide for beginners who are going to try this ice meet. But could you possibly share a few of your a few general tips for newcomers? I was going to be in your meet this year. However, it was
Endemic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, next year I got to save some of these tips and put them into practice.
Well, I mean, the first one is, start swimming in September and stay swimming every week as it gets colder. And swim shorter distances. Don't feel like you got to go out and swim an ice mile the first year. You can go in for 15 minutes and as it gets really cold, in for 5 minutes. And that's really what you need.
Mhm.
The second is that at some point before you're really acclimatized to it all, you'll have what I call the breathless moment, where you get in and it's just so cold and you're breathless and panicky. I mean, that's typically happens with people who start later than they should, so they haven't acclimatized. And what I learned I saw one survival of how to get out of ice, if you're ice skating and you fall through, because I know a lot of wintertime skaters, and they skate on thin ice. It's black ice that's smooth, as they follow it around. But this training is, don't try to get out the first minute you're in. If you go in and you're in a panic, just hang there for a minute and let yourself get used to the water. Then you have 4 minutes to live, you know,
Ooh.
and but I mean, if you're not trained, you have 4 minutes to live. And so then you can start trying to get out of the water and always go back the way you came. Because where you're going is what got started to get thin. And I had a friend who died trying to go towards shore when that was getting thinner. He was on his own, which leads to but had he gone back, he would have gotten back on solid ice. But I learned that 1 minute 1 minute rule of, if you're feeling totally nuts, just settle down before you get on with your swim. And that brings up the other one, which is never go out swimming alone. I mean, never alone, right, John? Is he still there?
Yeah.
And uh, and one of the things I learned myself is that, don't swim with your head submerged for the first few times.
Mm, yeah.
The
Figure it out.
difference between full submersion and swimming a breaststroke with your head above the water is huge.
It's huge. It really is.
Now, at some point you'll be ready for that, but
Well, anytime I've gone into, and I have, my coldest temperature so far is 53, and I did okay with that. I wasn't, it's the OMG moment when I first come in and I'm like, okay, I know this is going to pass and I'm going to be cool. But I do that head up breaststroke, old lady breaststroke, and then kind of gradually can put my head down. And yeah.
Once you're moving your other parts of your body, you can maybe handle that submersion. But a lot of people think that they can just jump in, and the shock is just too much, I think. Now, by the time you get trained and you're acclimatized to it all, I mean, I see winter swimmers climb down on the platform, stand there for a couple of seconds, and then they're in the water swimming. So they don't need that, because they've worked through that kind of panic. So those are a couple of things, but there are other things, like if you're swimming in where there's ice forming, that thin ice can be razor sharp and can really cut the shit out of you if you don't treat it seriously, and break it up.
Imagine, right?
Far away from you. And recognizing hypothermia is hard for you as the swimmer, but and how to warm up afterwards is really
if you
important.
don't live near open water where you're able to go in as a regular thing, what other, what alternatives do you suggest?
There ice baths.
Go get a barrel.
Yeah,
Go get a
and
barrel
splash
and
around
go to
in it.
that ice. Yeah, go to the
Yeah.
ice store.
I mean, as far as I can tell, we're the only ice pool in North America that has 25-meter lanes and is competitive. There's one other near Cooperstown. It's a much shorter pool. They do have, you do have to swim. It's not just a plunge. And they use it to raise money for cancer survivors or cancer patients and their families. But it's like they're swimming with a rope attached to them, and they're swimming for maybe 25 feet, something like that. That's the only one I know. Lake Tahoe sometimes stays open all year round, so you could go to, I mean, you could probably find open water year round out where you
I
are.
sometimes wade in the stream near my house that's not deep enough for swimming, but I'll just walk across barefoot when the water, and as the water gets cold, I'm thinking, oh, that's not too bad, but that's just wading. That's not the real deal.
Right. Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you so much, Phil. I certainly could hear more and more and more of your stories, and I'd love to take more questions, but it's been an hour. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and we could always have you back, I hope. Thank you so much.
Well, sometime I'll tell you how Janine persuaded me to start a whole new group of slow swimmers.
All right.
And to plan our events around slow swimmers.
That sounds like a worthy.
Well, and Lynn was part of that.
That would be me. I'm a slow swimmer.
All right, so we'll have the revisit to the how to accommodate swimmers of all categories and speeds with Phil White in a future
Great
episode.
talking to you, and great to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you
Good to
so
see
much, you guys.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.